Now that we've talked about events in the previous video, let's talk about exactly how to create and use these things. Now, there's two basic steps to creating and using an event. The first thing is to create and name a control. And I'm going to do this in Visual Studio. But you need to be aware that an event can't be assigned or handled in relation to a control unless that control has an ID tag. It has to have an ID. And this is what kind of tips it off when it gets compiled in ASP.NET. So first we'll create and name a control. Then we'll provide the code that gets executed when that particular event triggers. And I'll show you that in just a second. Now, Visual Studio greatly simplifies this process. And after you've seen this, you may already be familiar with this from VB6 or some other programming experience. You can do this manually in Notepad, but you're going to see Visual Studio makes it really easy. And it makes it very similar to what VB6ers have been doing for quite a few years. So let's go out to visualstudio.net, and I want to start from scratch here, and I'm going to create an entirely new web application. So I'm going to do a new project, and this will be a web app, and I'm going to call this one Event Test, and we'll let this build it, and we'll let it set up our virtual directory there on the web server. And so notice we've got a form here. Notice all we have is a form. We don't have a code behind page. Okay? I'm going to take a label, and I'm going to draw a label on this page. There's my label. And if I look at the properties on this label, notice we see the text of it says label. And so I'm going to clear that, and it's going to look like it goes away up here. Okay, I can see that the name of it's label 1. And also I wanted to point out to you that if I click on this and look at properties, you'll notice down here that ID, this is the name that I'm going to use to program to this thing. So just keep that in mind. ID is label 1 here. I'm also going to drag a button on here. Okay, and on the button, I'm going to change the text to click. Notice it now says click. Now notice something there that they've done also in .NET. Let me get back on this. We used to have captions on buttons and text on text boxes and so forth, and it got confusing, and you were always scrolling up and down trying to find things. Everything is text now. Caption is gone on these things. So notice now, I've got a label here and a button. Now, I want an event to happen. Anytime somebody clicks on this button, I want to indicate in the label that they've clicked on the button. So what I'm going to do is, just like in VB, I'm going to double click on my button in my web form, and notice it created my code behind page. Okay, let's go back to the form, and you'll notice in HTML now there's a code behind page that's been added. And if I go back to my code behind page, notice it created for me the event handler, and it says, let me close this, private sub button 1 click. That when a click happens, it's going to pass the sender, the system object that was clicked, any event arguments, and the code I write here handles a button 1 click event. Whoop, it jumped over there. A button 1 click event. So anytime somebody clicks on button 1, then this is the code that's going to run. So here's what's going to happen. When button 1 gets clicked, I'm going to say label 1 dot, and notice it's asking me here, it's helping me fill it out. Label 1 dot text. I'm going to set that equal to you clicked the button. Notice I've really only written one line of code. I simply double-clicked the control that I wanted an event on. Now, when I run this, you'll notice my web page will come up, and I'll see a button. And notice all I have is a click. Now, my label is out here, but it has no value right now, so it's hidden. And when I click on this, notice you clicked the button. It read my click event. Now, let me close this. And let's go back out here just a second. What if I wanted to do something else with this button? Notice on my code behind page, on the left side up here, I can choose my object, which is a button. And on the right side, I see the different events that I can set for this thing. And so I can say that when the button loads, notice button 1 load, I can set label 1 text equal to button has loaded. So now I've got 2 events, and let me run this. And you'll notice when my web page comes up this time, I will be told out here in the caption that my button has loaded, because as the button was loaded, that event fired and my code ran. Now when I click, notice it changes to you clicked the button. Now what you've just seen is the foundation for everything you're going to do in ASP.NET and Visual Studio, and I really do almost lump these things together because there's so much happening here. There is another trick with handles in ASP that I want to show you right quick, and that is I'm going to go out here to the toolbox, and I'm going to add another button, and you will notice if I view properties that this button, well, my properties is holding up, but if I double click I can see that this is button to click. Well, I don't want to handle it here, okay? I'm going to cancel this, and I just want to show you this is so drastically different from VB6. Notice button 1 clicks as you click the button. I can also say handles button 1 click, and then I can say button 2 dot click. And now this one event handler right here will handle both button 1 and button 2 click. So I'm going to run my page again. And when button 1 loads, I'll get that button has loaded. But notice I haven't really written an event for this, but if I click it, it will say you clicked the button, because that one event handler is handling both of these. So that's events and event handling. Notice the first thing I did in this, I dropped a control onto my web form, then I went back to my code behind page, and I can choose that particular object, and for example on a load on button 2, there's the event. And so whenever that event fires, I type code right here, and this is what will happen. This is what will take place when that event happens. That's events, plain and simple. These are the magic. Learn how to use these things. Learn how to think in terms of events, and you can add all sorts of capabilities to your web pages.